Today, the Suzuki Hayabusa is back in a new iteration for 2021 with a whole bunch of improvements across the bike. But the original Busa was, at a time, the fastest production bike on the market, and that contributed massively to its legendary status. Things have moved on a lot since then, with bikes like the supercharged Kawasaki Ninja H2R setting a completely new benchmark for out-and-out power and speed. Suzuki say that they've continued to improve upon the Busa formula with revised performance figures, better electronics, and more comfort and convenience, but is it enough to keep the Hayabusa competitive in 2021? In today's video, we'll go over all of the specs and details to find out. But before we get started, if you're new here and you want to see all of the latest motorcycle news right here on YouTube, then please do remember to hit subscribe. There are still plenty of bikes launching for the 2021 model year, so be sure to subscribe if you want to see those videos as soon as they go live. Now, the rumours were swirling that the Busa would get at least 100 cc's more capacity, possibly even a turbo. But perhaps surprisingly, capacity has remained the same at 1,340 cc. And it might be even more of a surprise to learn that peak power and torque are actually down on the previous generation. The Gen 2 bike produced 197 PS at 9,500 RPM, whereas this Gen 3 is peaking at 190 at 9,700. The previous bike also put out 155 Nm of peak torque at 7,200 RPM, whereas this new version does 150 Nm, slightly lower at 7,000 RPM. But these headline engine figures could be a touch misleading. There are loads of updates to the engine internals as seen here in yellow, and they include new cam profiles, updated valve springs, revised pistons and pins, the conrods are lighter and stronger, the crankcase, most of the transmission, and a new slip assist clutch are all significant updates for 2021. With stricter Euro 5 emission regulations in place, clearly a lot of work has had to be done to make it run cleaner, but in terms of performance, there's actually a clear bump in mid-range power when you look at the dyno chart here. And Suzuki say that this is responsible, combined with some mild weight loss, for faster times in a straight line. 0 to 62 miles per hour is down from 3.4 seconds to 3.2. So despite those top-line figures, they've actually built a quicker bike. Top speed remains factory limited to the same 186 miles per hour. A new exhaust system is also said to contribute to the stronger output in the mid-range, with a balancer pipe across cylinders 1 and 4 now, as opposed to just 2 and 3 on the old system. An updated CAT and the addition of a second O2 sensor help to pass Euro 5, and I think they've made a nice feature of it visually as well. It's also scored better with their research panel in terms of sound across the board, so I'm looking forward to hearing it in the flesh, although realistically, on a bike like this, the majority of owners will swap them out for something with a bit more bark. The fundamentals of the chassis are largely the same on this new bike as well, with the twin spar aluminium alloy frame and the swing arm remaining as is. The subframe has shed 700 grams of weight though, and combined with the 2 kilograms off the exhaust system, the total curb weight is down by a couple of kilos to 264. That's still not a particularly light bike, but the seat height is also down by 5mm to 800, which will provide a little reassurance to shorter riders. Aerodynamics are also said to be improved with better stability at high speed, whilst also reducing rider fatigue. The bars have been placed 12mm closer to the rider, which should help as well, making that reach a little easier. On top of that, Suzuki claimed that this tweak in position enhances handling when enjoying a sporty ride by giving the rider better feedback on how well the front tyre is gripping the road, by better supporting the rider's posture to improve stability when braking, and by offering the rider greater freedom in movement to control cornering. The bars are also on a floating mount to reduce vibrations, which again will help with comfort over long stints in the saddle. In terms of suspension, there's still a fully adjustable 43mm upside down KYB fork and a KYB shock at the rear, but the internal settings have been revised to improve bump absorption at the same time as improving stability and grip. Now, the brakes have always been a bit of a sticking point on the Busa, but 2021 brings top-spec Brembo Stylema calipers at the front, and the discs have been made bigger by 10mm to 320, which combined ought to improve power and cooling. The wheels also get a new 7-spoke design, and they're shod with Bridgestone's Battleaxe Hypersport S22 tyres that they say were exclusively designed with Suzuki for this bike. They claim that this revised compound and construction have led to better grip and agility in both wet and dry conditions, as well as straight line stability. But perhaps the biggest update for the Busa comes in the form of a comprehensive suite of highly adjustable rider aids, courtesy of a new ride-by-wire throttle and a new inertial measurement unit. Riders will be able to choose from 3 preset modes of active, basic and comfort, as well as dial in their own settings which can be stored in 3 user configurable slots. There's a lot to go at here, so brace yourself. Lean sensitive traction control has 10 levels, power delivery gets 3. There's a 2-mode up and down quick shifter which can also be disabled, and 10 modes of wheelie control. Engine braking gets 3 settings, as does the launch control system, which will operate at either 4, 6 or 8,000 RPM, depending on just how fast you want to go. For the more leisurely rider, there's a cruise control system, as well as a speed limiter to stop you getting carried away. ABS is also lean sensitive and makes use of a linked braking system that operates both the front and rear from the front brake lever in order to reduce stopping distances, and there's also an emergency stop signal which flashes the indicators front and rear if the rider suddenly brakes at speeds in excess of 34 miles per hour. The Busa also gets their slope-dependent control system which keeps rear-wheel lift in check when braking downhill, and a hill hold control system which, when activated, holds the brakes for 30 seconds when you come to a stop on an incline. An easy start system means that you can fire it up with one short press of the starter button, whilst a low RPM assist boosts revs when you're moving off to prevent stalls in stop-start traffic. All of these goodies can be administered through a new TFT screen that's nestled between the analog clocks, and there's also a revision to the switchgear to accommodate enough buttons. I reckon this dash setup will please a lot of punters, as I often get comments on my videos that people prefer analog clocks to a full TFT dash, so this design could offer the best of both worlds. Lighting also gets an update with LEDs all round, including a stacked headlight, the signature integrated indicators, and a new distinctive tail light. And that leads me onto the styling. We got a peek of it earlier in the week when we had some leaked footage, but now with these crystal clear press images, we can get a proper good look at it. Everything has been sharpened up with a more chiseled and angular appearance, most visible in that new front end. There are also some big scoops in the side of the fairing, and the rear end looks neat too, with a new tail section and those prominent exhausts. But it has to be said, it's still unmistakably a Busa, and you'd know the shape of that profile a mile off. 2 paint options are listed in the UK press release, with a black version with gold accents or a silver with red. Suzuki say that those pops of colour are there to accentuate the route of airflow over the bike, whilst the chrome trim and silencers demonstrate the direction of power delivery from the engine. It also gets the signature Hayabusa logos in both Japanese and English, and overall, I think they've made a decent job of it. The slightly more subtle paint jobs certainly give it a more modern look, and to me the bodywork looks fresh without losing the bike's identity. Let me know what you think of it though down in the comments. In terms of pricing and availability, they'll be in dealers from March 2021 and starting at $16,499. That's a decent wedge of cash, but when you start looking at other sports bikes that put out similar levels of power, it actually looks pretty competitive, although the Busa is on the heavier side than most. But as always, I'd love to know what you think of it down in the comments below. I know that some of you were expecting more capacity, a turbo, or perhaps semi-active suspension, and so you might come away from this a little disappointed. But ultimately, they've still managed to make it a smidge faster than the old bike by boosting that mid-range delivery, so the headline figures are somewhat irrelevant. But are the gains big enough, and can they justify that price tag? I can't wait to read the comments on this one, so let me know down below. And if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and I'll catch you next time.